Very quiet. I don't think people have had enough coffee yet. I know I haven't had enough coffee. Looks like people are jumping in. You want to give it another minute or two, Tana?
Yeah, just give it a couple more seconds. Here, we're still letting people in. As I give it maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, we have only about half of our registrations are joining us so far. So I expect.
Morning, everybody. I'll apologize now for the blank wall behind me. We moved recently and I have not yet gotten to decorating behind me. I'll get there. Guess I could put up some sort of a
Background. Do you want to be on the beach?
I don't know how to do that on Zoom. Given the previously mentioned lack of caffeine, I probably shouldn't try and figure it out right now.
Well, sometimes I wish I had a blank canvas. This morning I had to pick up lots and lots of baby toys to make sure that it was a little bit more acceptable. All right.
I like. Oh, sure. Go ahead. I was going to say I like Terry's background. She just changed it.
Yeah, and Jennifer has the cookies.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Cookies.
Oh, that's pretty.
Awesome.
It's a little late, but you know, still
It's
relevant.
never too late for cookies.
It is never too late for cookies. Exactly.
Those are lilac bushes from the yard. I figured it was spring.
Wow.
Those are
love
gorgeous,
lilac.
Terry.
Except they aren't blooming right now. This was last year's blooms.
Wow.
They're just
Pretty.
leafing out.
Oh, Debbie, yours is beautiful.
Well, I think we can go ahead and get started, and let's go ahead and get started. I'll keep letting people in, and people can catch up on the recording if they miss a few at the beginning moments.
Okie dokie. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this. At least it's a gorgeous Saturday morning where I am. I hope it's a gorgeous Saturday morning where you are too. We are going to take a closer look at our council's revenue streams and how they serve our youth and adult members. I'm Megan Kherlen, your CEO, and I continue to be so inspired by how you all are continuing to show up to ensure that Girl Scouts is stronger than ever and relevant for future generations. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded so that it will be available to share, and we're also going to post it to our website. If you have questions come up during the presentation, please note them in the chat so we can come back to them during the Q&A portion. Let's go on to the agenda slide and review what we have in store today. First, I'm going to introduce our new CFO, Kherlen Cox. We are thrilled to have her on board. She is amazing, both in terms of expertise and just as a human being. We'll dive deeper into the financials that were first presented during our annual meeting back in February. Those were preliminary numbers and they are finalized now through our audit. So they're a tad different, but they are the financials that were presented during the annual meeting. We'll tie our dollars back to our incredible mix of offerings that make up the Girl Scout leadership experience, powered by the efforts of incredible volunteers like you. But most importantly, we want to hear from you. What questions do you have? What topics would you like to see in future conversations? Because there will be future conversations like this. Before we dive into the slide deck, I'd like to give you some background on why this series is named Numata's Numbers. Let's go on, thank you. It's named after May Numata. the formidable May Numata is our most recent board chair. She's also a chief financial officer in her own right. And this series is paying homage to the transformative work that May did both with our board and our staff related to financial transparency and education. So as we move forward, we want to continue to emulate her approach to financial literacy and honor her by bringing this series forward and that spirit of education to our entire Girl Scout community. So that's why we're doing Numata's numbers. Next slide, please. As we center ourselves for today's conversation, I want to reiterate that everything we do starts with the Girl Scout mission and our own council's specific vision. Every cookie box sold, every dollar donated, every volunteer hour served, every membership sold is tied to the life-changing leadership outcomes for the Girl Scouts we serve every day. Our Girl Scouts of Western Washington vision is clear. We invest in our community through Girl Scouts. Our community represents every race, ethnicity, income level, sexual orientation, ability, and religion, reflects a spectrum of gender identity, and connects across geographic locations. By focusing our attention on community members who are furthest from racial, economic, and social justice, Girl Scouts can be an instrument of change, promoting equitable outcomes for all. We wholly commit to taking anti-racist action to grow as an anti-racist and anti-oppressive organization so that through Girl Scouts, our members are affirmed as they strive to make our community and world better. As we'll discuss today, our financial stability allows us to reach more girls, invest in our communities, and change the lives of youth across Western Washington today, tomorrow, and decades into the future. In this context, money is the catalyst for impact. And now it is my privilege to introduce you to Kherlen Cox, our new Chief Financial Officer. Before joining Girl Scouts of Western Washington, Kherlen worked at the Dennis Louis Education Center, a local nonprofit that provides early childhood education to low-income children and families, where she was finance director. Previously, she held finance leadership positions at other nonprofit organizations, including the Seattle Foundation and Impact Washington. Kherlen is a certified public accountant and holds a Master of Business Administration degree from the City University of Seattle. She has a passion for youth development and co-founded a youth organization, the Seattle Mongolian Youth Center, to help Mongolian children to achieve success in life through various educational and enrichment programs. We are beyond thrilled to have her on staff. While she will be walking us through today's conversation, I ask that you keep in mind that she's been with Girl Scouts just about 8 weeks. As you can imagine, she's drinking from the fire hose that is all things Girl Scouting. We are committed to answering your questions on this call to the fullest extent that we can. But if we can't, we will get them answered and sent back out to the group, in addition to being posted online. Kherlen, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Megan. I am ecstatic to be at Girl Scouts of Western Washington. I feel honored to present to you this morning. I want my tenure with this amazing organization to start with trust and transparency. And I hope this is the first of many conversations I have with our Girl Scouts, adult members, and volunteers. The numbers have no meanings without the mission, am I right? As Megan mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and our Tana Gradle, our AVP of Philanthropy, will keep track of them for our Q&A portion later on. So as mentioned earlier, Megan mentioned earlier, the financials presented today are from fiscal year 2020, which began on October 1st, 2019 and ended on September 30th, 2020. Because 2020 was such an anomaly, we have included numbers from fiscal year 2019 in areas that had dramatic changes year over year. These numbers might look a little differently than the numbers that we presented at our annual meeting in February. Those numbers were preliminary, and then we have received our audited financials from auditors just recently. So also note that the numbers in this presentation reflect numbers in the operating fund, which meaning it doesn't include any restricted funds that we have. So how we're funded. Our funding comes from 5 primary sources: the product program, the cookies, the philanthropy, retail, program fees, and other income. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, program fees suffered the greatest setback, coming in at 94% under budget. Our product sales performed better than expected, being a pandemic year. Cookie season was nearly over when the pandemic began, and then Bartell Drugs partnered with us to help sell our remaining cookie inventory. So, and retail, philanthropy, and other income were all under budget between 23 and 44% last year. So here's a comparison of the product program for FY 2020, actuals to budget and year over year. As you can see, we remained relatively flat to budget and saw a small income increase over 2019, about 1.75%. So our other revenue streams had a year over losses and were significantly short of budget as well. Our program fees were hardest hit, as I mentioned earlier, about 94% under budget. Retail ended the year 41% below budget. Philanthropy 23% under budget, and other income 44% under budget as well. So just so you know that our other income includes our interest income, harvest income, disbanded troop accounts, portions of lifetime memberships, and our unrelated business income like our horse sales. So that is how money flows into our organization, and here's how those funds are allocated across our organization to serve our members. So our expenses are typically grouped into about 3 main categories: programming, management in general, and fundraising. As you can see, our lion's share of our expenses benefit our youth and adult members through direct service at 81%. So this slide illustrates how our different revenue streams are spread across our 3 expense categories. For example, in FY 2020, 94% of a Girl Scout programming came from the product program, 3% from philanthropy, 2% from program fees, and 1% from other income. Our management in general doesn't receive philanthropic funding nor program fee income. Therefore, the product program covers 97% of the expenses, and philanthropy covers its own expenses. So these numbers are based on a gross product sales. As our primary revenue source in FY 2020, each box of cookies sold funded the following. 50% went to Girl Scout programming, 24% went to the cost of the cookies, 15% went to Troop Girl proceeds, and 11% went to administration. So a common question that comes up is how philanthropic dollars fund the organization. Last year, 60% of all donated funds went to general operating, which means donors didn't add a specific purpose to their gift, and we could fund our greatest needs. 40% of the donations were earmarked for specific purposes, such as financial assistance, specific programs, specific operations, like to a camp, and then remaining amount funded smaller named projects across the council. So we shared how our revenue comes into the Girl Scouts and how it funds our expenses, but what does that mean for our members? How do members benefit from these funds? Several times during the presentation, I've mentioned that I've mentioned Girl Scouts programming or Girl Scout programs. So what does that mean? So what does that include? Well, here's a list of member-facing programs and services included under the umbrella of Girl Scout programming. So we have product program at 35%, includes the girl proceeds, non-camp programs about 16%, community engagement at 16%, camp programs and property 14%, troop support services at 11%, member support services about 8%, and financial assistance program, volunteer governance about 1% each. But this is still a little high level, so let's go deeper. So our Girl Scout members have access to a broad array of leadership experiences that strengthen their sense of self, deepen their positive values, hone their community problem-solving skills, and help develop healthy relationships and encourage them to seek challenges and learn from them. Together with the Legion of Volunteers, we offered programs like a Highest Awards, a phenomenal workshop with key program partners like T-Mobile, Warner Media, and Facebook with tech expertise. And we have our pilot aviation program with Boeing and volunteer-led programs like True Programs and Twilight Camps. Our Democracy Week and Zombie Pandemic Challenge, Camp in a Box, Girl Scouts at Home, our product program, just to name a few. Last year, we provided 515 programs across our 5 program pillars, including 227 STEM workshops. That's nearly 10 a week. Girls had opportunities to be delegates, marketers, inventors, creators, entrepreneurs, and community problem solvers. We supported our adult volunteers and members through learning opportunities, troop support, supplies and recognition, conflict resolution, customer care, program registration, community and volunteer recruitment, placement, learning conferences, service unit support, and our financial assistance program and insurance. Everyone in the organization, from our daisies to our green bloods, can lead, learn, and fulfill their potential through Girl Scouting. And our outcomes prove that they do. We think that that's pretty hefty return and ongoing investment in the Girl Scouts programming. I think it's important that we highlight our commitment to become an anti-racist organization. This work is embedded in all of the program areas in the previous slide and on our administrative HR costs. We allocate resources to these efforts so that we can embed our vision in our structural systems, business processes, and efforts, or educate volunteers and employees on DEI topics, offer programming that removes barriers to access and inclusion and teaches Girl Scouts about social justice and racial equity, forge partnerships with other organizations that share our values, recruit and retain racially diverse volunteers, board members, and employees so all Girl Scouts can see themselves represented. So now that we've seen how money is coming to your organization and how they're allocated across our departments and how those dollars are used to create positive outcomes for Girl Scouts, now what? What's next? So here's a reminder of the priorities that we set as an organization for 2020 through 2022. And that was shared at the annual meeting. So these are the priorities that will guide our work through September 30th, 2022. It's stability, relevancy, and visibility. Stability in every facet of our value-based operation, including finances, membership, programming, workforce support, and organizational culture. Relevancy from culturally responsive programming, communications, and operations that girls, families, volunteers, and staff are attracted to and resonate with. Visibility that drives Girl Scouts of Western Washington, culturally responsive in-person virtual programming, and community presence through showcasing GSWW's results to key audiences through high impact avenues. So as this is a conversation on our financial health, for Girl Scouts to be more stable, we need to work toward a more balanced mix to safeguard our organization for the future Girl Scouts who will need us. With you and other partners, we are actively working toward moving our organization toward ideal mix of revenues reflected in the pie chart onto the far right. It's not that we want cookies to shrink. It's a program that benefits more than a bottom line. And it teaches girls the fundamentals of business, why we want to dampen that. It's just that we want pie to grow so that we can expand on our mission and vision to elevate more youth potential who will make our world a better place. So like I said in the beginning, the numbers have no meaning without the mission. And we can't do it alone. And we look forward to partnering with you to ensure our Girl Scout is healthy, relevant, and sound for generations to come. And with that, I'm going to open up for questions.
So it looks like we have a couple of questions. It looks like Terry's question was answered in the program. Terry, was that answered sufficiently for you? Great. The second question is kind of a comment that we can make note. Harriet Lightman, I hope I pronounced that correctly, said, this would be great if there was a session like this to discuss what is being done by council in regards to diversity in membership and with volunteers, recruitment of volunteers / girls, starting troops for target communities, etc. And I think that that is a great idea. And we do have lots of things that are being done behind the scenes, but we should be presenting them and pushing that forward so everyone is on the same page with how that work is being done. And Megan, you can jump in here as well.
Yeah, hi Harriet, thank you for the idea, and we'll definitely move that forward to both the head of our membership and the head, our chief people and culture officer, who are the two teams that would be the ones to coordinate on that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that our entire DEI plan, our action plan is on the website, and I'll drop the link to that in the chat. But would love to have a session talking about it. That's a great idea.
And then the second question, Christine Olson asked, how many staff members are in the philanthropy department and how long has each staff member been part of that department? So we have four staff who are directly responsible for donor interaction. We have myself. I work with our individual donors in a variety of capacities. I've been with the organization for 4.5 years. Wade Brewer and Alicia Cunningham head up our corporate strategy, and they have been with the organization between 2 and 3 years. Alicia probably closer to 4, Wade probably closer to 3 at this point. Beth Race Berquist, she heads up our foundation relationships, and she's been with the organization coming up on 2 years at the end of this summer. And then we have Laura Hall, who is, she's been with the organization. She's a lifetime Girl Scout. She's been with the organization for quite a while in a variety of roles. She's currently, she's our philanthropy coordinator, and so she helps with gift processing and administrative support. Does that answer the question? Is there anything else you'd like to know, Christine?
I appreciate that. I saw the growth of the pie chart. I'm doing that with my hands.
Yep.
Good work.
Well, that's where our ideal state is. We're not there yet.
I totally get that there's that, but there's still been like growth, right? So
Absolutely.
where there's growth, I want to celebrate that. And I know that there's more growth to be doing, but good work with everything that you've done so far.
And we really couldn't have achieved that success without our community coming to the table with us. And so we're really grateful for our donors, our corporate partners, and our philanthropy, our foundation partners. It's been really great to see that investment in Girl Scouts.
It is. And I'm really grateful for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then it looks like Harriet has another comment. It says, for the summer camp programs, are they self-funding, not including the scholarships for girls to attend, through fees to attend camp? Megan, do you want to tackle that one? Or do you?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was busy writing Tana's a gem.
The question was from Harriet. For the summer camp programs, are they self-funding, not including the scholarships for girls to attend, through fee to attend camp?
No, they are not. Our camps are, none of our camps are self-funding. They are significantly subsidized.
Kherlen, do you want to go to the camp slide that's in the appendix? That might be helpful as a visual.
Oh, right. Okay, let me do that.
And that is something that we are looking at and needing to figure out.
This one, right?
Nope, it's the next one.
Is this the one?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And let's note that this is 2019 numbers, so that program fee would be more significant in, or sorry, this was 2020. That program fee would be greater in a non-COVID year. However, it still is heavily subsidized. And this includes property as well, the camp properties.
But even when you take out the property cost, just the program
doesn't cover costs.
Exactly.
Harriet made another comment. She said, thanks, Megan. I feel like there is more that could be done to leverage the volunteers to help drive membership.
Agreed. And that is being built into membership strategies as we look forward. How do we do a better job of partnering with our volunteers to support both recruitment and retention?
And that was specifically on the diversity piece.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Donna mentions being subsidized is actually appropriate to some extent since the subsidy comes in a large part from girls selling cookies. That is from Donna Gaffney. Megan, do you want to comment?
I think if we go back and look at the slides, we can see exactly how much of cookie proceeds support camp. Agree, and we have to figure out the exact right mix.
I would say that we want cookies to continue to fund and subsidize a portion of all of our programming because it is 50% of the cookies should go to girl programming, and we don't want to reduce that. That's the incentive for girls. It benefits girls. But right now, I think that we are too heavy on our cookies. And again, it's not about shrinking cookies. It's about growing those other what I would consider to be sort of the adult contributions, which come in a variety of ways, whether that is direct donations, program fees, submitting for volunteer matching. But it's about growing those other pieces that really grow the whole pie rather than diminish what cookies really does do. I mean, cookies powers the organization, but we also want to make sure that we're not, that we have other funding sources as well.
And the other thing that I want to add to what Tana is saying is, just echoing, we don't want to diminish. It's not shrinking cookies, specifically because cookies is first and foremost a program. Girls benefit so significantly from their participation in the program. The financial part of it is obviously bedrock in terms of support, but there is tremendous benefit to our Girl Scouts in terms of what they gain and learn from participating in the program. So that's always the first lens, and then the finances come after it. Christy Glenn is asking about the horse funding.
It was included. That's all included in the camp programming. It's both a property expense with the actual care of horses. It's also part of the program because of horse camp and the revenue associated with horse camp. So it's on both sides. It was included. Obviously in FY20, we didn't have programming. So that's why you see that 94% dip in financials. But we still had, the whole year, we actually still had the 100% of the expense of our horses and the care of our horses and the boarding of our horses. Harriet Lightman, her second question or her next question was, how does our mix of revenue streams compare with other councils, specifically those that offer robust programming and property ownership? I don't have that readily available, but I think it's a really great thing that we could pull together and push back out to the community. I think it's a great question. Megan, do you have, there might be councils that you would recommend that we reach out to that have similar or more robust?
We can certainly look. Harriet, I want to be sure that I'm understanding what you mean by robust programming. Do you mean specifically robust camp programming?
I'm saying ones that would have, that own camps and offer robust. I mean, every council is different, right? And there are councils that are consistently struggling financially and don't necessarily provide as many opportunities to their membership as we do. So I wanted to make sure that it was a comparison between, a council that demographically and financially would be more representative of us. Like I would think somewhere like in California, you would find some that were more similar to us to be able to do that comparison.
Okay.
So yeah. So I'm just curious, like, if you were a corporate, this was a corporation, we'd be looking at what other companies in our same sector are doing to understand and help drive the future change. So I wasn't sure if when you came up with what the new ideal mix was, if you had already looked at that and would be able to get ideas for how they help drive achieving that mix as well.
We've not specifically looked at other councils yet. It is an interesting angle that we will look at now. Thank you for the idea.
Okay.
What I can say is that being cookie heavy, cookie reliant is a very common thread. Most councils are. There are other councils that have a stronger philanthropy history. Arizona's coming to mind. Nation's Capital is coming to mind. The Houston Council, and I'm blanking on the name.
Eastern Texas.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I don't know off the top of my, they're not camp significant councils.
Okay.
So looking at, it'll be interesting to see if there are, if that strong philanthropy, strong camp mix is there. The one that is leaping to mind is North Texas, the Dallas Council. They are strong philanthropy, they're strong camp, and I'm sure that their cookie reliant percentage is lower because of it, but they don't have the number, anywhere near the number of properties.
And to be honest, one of the things I worked at Microsoft, I retired a couple of years ago, and I tried to help make arrangements to have the council come for one of the big days. I mean, Microsoft is a great company to partner with, to be able to, from a philanthropy perspective, to be able to both get their employees as well as the company itself to provide support both monetarily and volunteer-wise to the organization. And I always felt like, our council never really did enough to be able to foster that partnership successfully. So, and there are other big companies in this area, Salesforce, they sponsor Girl Scouts. They are a national sponsor of Girl Scouts, and they happen to be located in San Francisco, but they have an office here as well. And so leveraging partnerships with some of these big, companies and figuring out how can we foster a better relationship with the company itself and their employees to help drive that.
The general counsel for the retail side of Microsoft is on our board and is working to help build that relationship. And I completely agree with building relationships with major corporate partners is important. Microsoft is one that we have continually been working to strengthen. As you're pointing out, it's not a quick or easy path. Tana, anything you want to add to that?
I would just say I think it could be quicker and easier. I mean, I feel like in the past what I've seen done hasn't really been a good foot forward for Girl Scouts. So that's
completely open to ideas.
That's just my 2 cents in that. So
and Harriet, I think one of the things I think Girl Scouts did do a couple years ago, and I don't know when you retired, Wade came on board about 3 years ago, really to head up our corporate strategy. We didn't have anyone that was dedicated to corporate. And what we realized is that, that's basic relationship management. If you don't have somebody who is really stewarding and caring for that group, is that now that we have a dedicated person, we've seen, significant growth in the last 3 years. And it always starts with who in our community knows somebody somewhere that can make that introduction. And so I'd love maybe offline to talk with you about maybe some different areas that you think we could improve on. Microsoft has been a little bit more challenging outside of matching, which we have tripled our matching in the last 3 years, which is awesome. Thanks to our amazing volunteers. but we have struggled a little bit in terms of trying to get either a direct sponsorship from Microsoft or having a more intentional presentation to certain members to increase that individual or volunteer recruitment, if you will. So potentially I would love to maybe reach out to you specifically if you have some ideas that we can really move the needle on. Because
Sure. Happy
yeah,
to.
the corporate, we know that the corporate strategy is really important. We've been really lucky this year. We really thought the corporate was going to kind of tank because of COVID, and because we're tech centered, our corporate environment really didn't dip, which we're fortunate for. And so it remains a really strong channel for us.
And I want to just be clear, we absolutely have bungled, you know, in that sphere prior to Wade and Tana and Tara Jones, the Chief Revenue Officer now, prior to their leadership and taking hold and cleaning it up. So
and we know
yeah.
that we can't do it alone. We are a small but mighty team. We know that we really need to partner with the people who know and love us the best and have those relationships and help us put our best face forward. Donna Gaffney is mentioning, I'm interested in increasing member support dollars to pair with other sources. If the closest advocates can match their money enthusiasm with their volunteer hour enthusiasm, we have a stronger case to present to to community partners. Donna, do you want to say more about that? You're on mute, hold on.
Okay, I'm on mute. So I think a lot of us have put countless hours in, and that's good. I mean, we can't exist without volunteer hours. But then I know from the old school, there was this idea that if you're doing hours, somebody else could do money. And I've come to understand over my years of playing with fundraising for Girl Scouts and other organizations that the people that care most passionately about these things with their hours really do need to throw in some money. If everybody makes a personally significant donation, and we have an effective way to collect those and encourage those and grow those, our friends that are working with the communities are going to have a much easier job of finding people who want to support us. That's all. So,
I don't disagree, Donna.
I know.
But I think this is why we're doing these types of activities, is making sure that people are brought to the table wherever they are, so that we can have healthy dialogue. And I think much to some, bungling maybe some of our corporate memberships, I think we also have to honor that we might have bungled some of our individual relationships and our member donors as well. And rather than just jump to asking for dollars, which we know we will have to go to, is that we also want to build back trust and transparency. That the dollars invested in the organization are doing really wonderful things for our Girl Scout community.
Yeah, and it's been hard for volunteers, I think, during the pandemic, and with our sad changes to staff that were necessary because of pandemic. It's been hard for us to see some of the wonderful things that are happening. Mm-hmm. They're communicated in ephemeral emails that come out, and some of it's on the web and a great deal is not. So I'm really encouraged by having these conversations.
Well, I hope that this is the first of many. Christine says, if it's not part of this program, I'm happy to wait for the next. Is there a way to bring an introduction to a potential donor, especially monthly reoccurring donations, fall in love with GSWW besides, sorry, it jumped up, besides a yearly table event? So I say yes. One of the things that our virtual world has taught us is that, and I've never been a fan, events are great as friend raisers, but they cost a significant amount of money to do. And so a large percentage of our giving ends up also going to pay for the event. I love the idea of having smaller, more intimate events where we can introduce or capitalize on people's love of the organization and find ways for them to participate, whether that is what we would consider to be like an old school, like traditional house party, although that can be many, many different things, you know, small events at, you know, a local business and bring people together. So Christine, I don't know if like the detail of going into this here, but yes, I think we have to move away from big events and really get to that peer-to-peer advocacy, whether that's bringing, you know, someone like yourself who you have 15 friends who love Girl Scouts and bringing them in for an event to have a more intimate conversation about what we're doing and how our community can invest in that work. Christine, you want to follow up?
It would make me so happy to partner with Girl Scouts of Western Washington and pilot something like that. That is something that I'm personally good at and have experience with, and I happen to have a lot of friends. So
perfect. I'm going to call you again this week. You and I are going to be best friends.
I think you have good taste.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And then Dawn Nearing asked a really good question. It says, how is the money from property sales being invested? Specifically the Bellevue store and DuPont.
So property sales, the proceeds from the sale of any property, the board has directed that those be invested, be put into our investment accounts. We have a standing investment committee that is comprised of both board members and non-board members who are professionals in the investment field. We also have we have a contract with an investment company, so they are professionally managed, and that whole portfolio is overseen by the standing investment committee. So that's what happens with those proceeds. There are board approved policies that govern how the investments are managed. There is the return on the investment can be used to support operations to a certain extent, but the purpose of the investment fund is to support long-term sustainability for the organization. Kherlen, anything to add to that?
No, mainly they're used to really build up a reserve. And if you ever go to something like the second pandemic again, we can rely on those reserves so that we can still operate our organization.
And Megan, this might be one where maybe one of the sessions that we do does a deep dive in like, what does it mean? What's the investments, and have our investment committee do a webinar and be able to ask questions and kind of what those strategies are and how do they, you know, manage those funds. I think that might be an interesting topic as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Dawn, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to answer the other question about how many employees are there now in our council. And we're right at 100.
Christine makes a really good point in the comments, you know, regarding member support. From an equity perspective, it can drive up volunteers if there is a strong expectation to donate if you volunteer, as not everyone has the means to do so. I live in a low-income county and have seen people step away from volunteer hours when they are expected to also donate significantly. Some people will leave versus admit that they are unable to donate as a matter of pride. I come from a strong perspective that there are lots of ways to participate in philanthropy in addition to making a gift. Helping us campaign, helping bring people together, telling the story, advocating, that is all part of philanthropy. And some people are able to make a gift and some people aren't, but can help us spread the mission of the philanthropy, can help connect us to people who want to invest in this work. So I agree, Christine, I would never want to set up, philanthropy to me should never be a turn off. It should be something that we present as an opportunity for you to fulfill your own mission, whether that's with time or dollars. We just also have to know that we still do need those contributed dollars to make us whole. And we need our volunteers to make us whole. So I don't want it ever to be an either or an expectation that it must be and. There's lots of ways that we can include everybody. Everybody's participation is really critical and important in the work. Christine has a great question about GSWW moving forward with office space. As someone who has always lived far away from GSWW offices, I've always wondered why Totem Council / GSWW didn't do more telecommuting. Now that we are mostly telecommuting, is that something that we can keep doing and rent shared community office space when needed?
So Girl Scouts of Western Washington has gone to a permanent telework or remote-based posture for all of our staff. We adopted that a year ago. So we have already gone through the process of looking at all of our positions from a function standpoint and determining whether or not there was a reason that that particular function needed to have an assigned space in an office. And if not, then all of the functions are permanently assigned as remote based. And we've adjusted all of our policies to reflect that. So we are permanently a telecommute workforce. When it is allowable, our staff will be able to come back to offices for meetings and project work and, you know, as they need to. And staff can go into offices now under the current guidelines, but it's not going to be everybody has their assigned cubicle or office and going back in, you know, 8 to 5 Monday through Friday in that kind of old way of work. Everybody is home-based except for a very few people with a very specific reason to have a designated office. So completely agree. What we are going to be going through after the camp property assessment that is currently underway is an office property assessment. We completely realize that because of the fact that both our staff and our members aren't using or needing to be using our office spaces in the same way, we need to do a deep look at our offices and figure out what does that portion of our property portfolio need to look like. We know we need to be physically present in some way across the council, but it's not how we're currently configured within our offices. So we are still paying rent for the properties that we are under lease for. We can't just walk away from those leases, but we'll be exploring what does that look like when we get there.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Okay, well, I don't see any, so we'll go on. Kherlen?
So I would like to really thank everybody for joining us today for this conversation. And then if you have any other questions, please reach out to us, and then we hope to get that posted and answered on our webpage. And then we have another survey, brief survey to collect your feedback. And then you can address what topics you like to see discussed going forward. And I think we have a few topics that came from today's discussion, and we would like to work on those as well. And then the areas you like to see more in detail. And we do have a couple topics, and you can send us more as well. And then if any other questions and FAQs, please send this to us, and then we will post those on our new webpage dedicated to this information. And then I really hope that today's content was relevant. And then I really hope that you share this with your friends and family and our Girl Scouts community. And thank you so much, and have a great rest of your Saturday. Bye.
Question just really quick. There was one last question that
Oh, okay.
John Nearing asked, and since we have a couple of minutes,
Sure.
Megan, do you want to address it? She just basically is asking about the Seattle office. Will that be given up as no activities currently occur there?
Sure. Actually, the Seattle office is used. It's the corporate headquarters. So there is business activity that happens there. We know that we will need to be, we will need offices and, stores and, I'm not saying that we won't be in offices or in physical locations. We just don't know the specifics of what that will look like and how we'll be using it or where it'll be. So I don't want to create I don't want to put into the Girl Scout grapevine that Girl Scouts is not going to be physically present anywhere, because we will be.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is we're going to need to go through a process of looking at how do we best use our council resources to support that kind of physical office presence in the most strategic way, because how our offices are currently situated, we're not using them the way that we used to. So we got to figure out what that means.
And then Harriet just made a comment that she hopes that we don't lose access to 3D printing, etc.
I hear you. And so that's the kind of thing that we'll need to figure out.
Yeah. So look
And
for
I do want to go back to what I think it was Christine said, the idea around shared space and how do we leverage partnerships. Completely get that.
And Terry,
Love the,
I will add financial assistance to our list of potential future conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we really hope that this is the beginning of a really transparent place in our organization where, we partner in this work with you. You're part of our conversation. We can't do it without you. And we hope you feel like we add value to your work as well. And so I look forward to hearing about all the ways that you would love to hear from us and what you'd like to know more of. A survey will be coming out on Monday to this group, but feel free to pass it on to people who may not have been on this call. We want to know what you want to know so that we can make relevant content for you. So just thank you guys all so very much for joining us on a Saturday. I hope you get to enjoy the sunshine, and we look forward to being in contact with you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.